Hey there, Stampers. Happy Friday. Welcome to this week's live. My name is Sherry Roth. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Alberta, Canada, and I am excited to be here today to share a fun little mini album project with you and a sneak peek at some upcoming product. Um, Now, this project it can be used for several different things. You can use it as a gratitude journal. You can use it to document some fall memories, maybe some memories from Thanksgiving weekend, um, or you can add it to your junk journal. So let me just make sure I'm just updating my screen here. Okay, so let me share a little flip through of the album and then I'll go through what I'm using because I'm using a combination of some new product and some junk, which is my new favorite thing. I love to combine some new product and some old product. All right, so first of all, it just opens like this. So some of this stuff you might not recognize. These are some new dies, new stamp set, and then it opens like this. There's a pocket here. There's a pocket here. So it is made out of a lunch bag. There's a little insert here, and then there is two pockets up at the top. So this is just made out of a lunch bag. How fun is that? So one of my favorite things to do lately, along with my husband, is we love to visit the local Hodgepodge Lodge, which is a place where you can donate items. Um, and then you can pick, like they offer them for free. It's basically just a way to kind of prevent items from ending up in the landfill. So, and I used to think that it was just a building of junk. I never wanted to go and my husband wanted to go, but since I started junk journaling, there are some great finds there. I've started looking at things differently, and it's one of my favorite places to go. I actually got together with a friend yesterday, and we spent the day junk journaling together. And she had never been to the Hodgepodge Lodge, so after lunch, I took her there, and we spent over an hour looking through there because they were constantly restocking the shelves because people are constantly bringing stuff in, and it was just so much fun just to look at things with new eyes to see how they could be used. Okay, why is this not? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go through what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through what I'm using first, and then I will walk you through how to create this. It's very simple. You can use anything in your stash to create this. So although I'm using some new Stampin' Up! Product, don't feel like you have to have that product. You can use anything. You don't even have to create a fall one. It can be any occasion. All right. So let me slide this out of the way here. And I just got to make sure all my pieces are out so I remember what I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to go through the junk first. So, one of the things, like literally, they will take almost anything. There are some things that they don't take, but they take like leftover pieces of paper. Sometimes you'll find just like a couple random pieces of paper. So, this was a paper that I found, and I love it because I don't know how old it is, but I love it that it's yellowed. And it could be that it's new paper and that's just the color of it, but whatever. I love it. I've used some book paper. So I have taken apart an older, I think it's from the 50s or 60s Reader's Digest book to use as a junk journal. And so this is one of the pages from that. This is just some craft colored tissue paper. This is a paper bag. So they had, I think there were 5 or 10 of them just sitting on the shelf. So I grabbed those because who uses paper bags anymore? Everybody has their own lunch bag, right? If you take your lunch. So I thought that was kind of fun. And I thought that's where the inspiration for today's project came from, was something from the Hodgepodge Lodge. And then also like gift wrap or cards. So this is an older gift wrap paper from Carlton Cards. It doesn't have a year, but it does say Carlton Cards on the bottom. But it's got some foxes and some leaves, and I just thought it was perfect. It says especially for you on it, on the background, but really the focus is these foxes. And on the back, it's kind of yellowed. So it does look like it's an older gift wrap. And then music paper. This is another one that I absolutely love. So I actually unbound this book. It was just stapled in there so that I can use some music paper as well. All right, so that is the junk that we're using today. So let me actually, we're going to need these pieces. And then as far as the new product that we're going to use, So these products will be available beginning, I believe it's September 3rd. And I believe some of the items that I'm going to share with you are online exclusive items that are being released, and some are from the mini catalog that's coming out. So this is some new paper. It is called Gathering Together, and it's got, I think it's like champagne foil elements in it, but you can see that gorgeous leaves, some gold detailing, and then the back sides are a little bit more neutral. Like, look at this one, basic beige on white. I love that. And then here is the B sides. So we've got a little bit of plaid, we've got some distressed ones. If you're a scrapbooker, this is fabulous. So fabulous. I mean, for card makers as well. Okay, so that's the DSP. And then there is a bundle. So this is called the Gathering Moments bundle. And you can see that this, if you use that inside from the big leaves, it gives you holes so you can stitch your projects. And then this is another bundle. This is called Branching Out. There is a stamp set that coordinates with this. I love this for the dies. So we're going to use the dies on this stamp set. The stamp set, or the dies on this project. The stamp set is really nice as well. And then we've got some retired ribbon. This is vanilla and black large check ribbon. That one has retired. This is a new ribbon. This, I believe this one is in the mini catalog. This is the Irregular Weave Trim, and I am in love with this ribbon. I have used it so much since I've gotten it in. And then if you follow me and you've been following me for a while, you know that I love my twine. And there's actually a few twines that are going to be released, but this is early espresso and old olive linen thread. So we're using some of that today as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to set our paper bag aside because there are a couple things that I want to do because we need to stamp on them first before we start, because it needs a little bit of time to dry. Now, that's one of the things that I found is if you're stamping on some of this older stuff, it is not made, the paper is not always made for stamping. So sometimes it takes a little longer for it to dry. So I like to try to do that first, and sometimes I forget. And I end up kind of smearing or getting little fingerprints on it, right? Because it gets on your hands. So that's just something to be mindful of. Okay, so we're going to bring in our silicone mat. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this tissue paper, we're just going to crinkle it and then open it back up. And then we're going to cover this with glue. Now, when I do this, I prefer to use a glue stick. So I've just got an Elmer's glue stick. And I'm going to be pretty generous. I want to cover this entire sheet. Move this up and do the rest. So, and of course, if you are not into collecting junk, um, then you can replace this with a piece of patterned paper or cardstock. You can stamp your own pattern on it. We're going to turn some of this into a tag and use it for a couple other things as well. So now I'm just going to kind of line this up here. We will end up kind of straightening it out a fair bit. Like there won't end up being too many creases. You can use your bone folder if you want to get rid of lots of the creases, but I kind of like the look of the creases, so I'm not too worried if there's a few creases left on there. And that just softens it a little bit. I love the look of this, and this works really well if you don't have yellowed book paper. So you can put this layer over top and um, it will kind of yellow it a little bit and make it look a bit more aged. Okay, so now I'm just going to take my snips, snip along here. And I am not going to give you the measurements for today just because there are different sized lunch bags. So every lunch bag is going to be slightly different and it's going to depend on how you cut and fold your lunch bag. So your sizing may not be the exact same sizing as my sizing. Okay, so those two pieces will go in the trash because they're smaller, but then these pieces, these are bigger pieces. So I will keep these. Also pretty amazing at what I keep now. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, no problem, Shauna. Hello, Mary Ellen from Montana. Good morning. Okay, and I'm just going to loosely trim around this. We're going to trim this up so that it's a little straighter with our paper trimmer. Okay, so this will go in my scrap bin because this is still perfectly usable. It's amazing when you start junk journaling how you look at things differently and you keep everything. Now, even just the tiniest strips, and I'll show you how to use some of those tiny strips today as well. Okay, now I need to see what size tag do I need here. Let me measure this rather than looking at my notes. Okay, so this is going to be about 3 by 4.5. Okay, so we are going to cut this. So I'm going to cut this border off. I don't need the border. And then I'll cut about 3 inches. And then I'll go down to about 4.5 inches. I'll flip it over, go to 4.5, and there's my tag. So I've kept a big part, and look at that. That's another thing is because this is paper and not cardstock, I do find that my paper trimmer, it works better with my guillotine paper trimmer. So this paper trimmer works much better with cardstock. I find it often kind of frays. All right, we're going to set this aside. We are going to use that again. And I'm just going to angle cut this to turn it into a tag. So I've got that, and then I'm going to use this piece, which kind of fell apart a little bit here. Use that as a guide so that I have a relatively even tag. Okay. And then what we want to do, so now it's book paper on the back. We want to bring our this in, and I want to make this like a journaling spot so that I have some space to write a message. So I'm actually going to cover that over with a piece of this paper. So now I'm going to cover this with the back, and I probably could have flagged this after I did this, but that's okay. So again, I'm using my glue stick. And I will put it right here. Again, trying to conserve as much of this paper as I can so that I can stretch its use. So one of the great things about junk journaling is you are preventing items from ending up back in the landfill. So you're repurposing them. So yes, you'll still end up with some little bits of trash, but if you're strategic, there will be very few scraps that end up in the garbage. All right, so we're just trimming this to create our tag. And we're going to set this aside because we will use this. Okay, so we are going to stamp on that, but I need to just check and see what else. There was something else that I needed to, oh, yes. Okay, the other thing that I have here is I have a piece of ledger paper. So this is just, I picked it up at the reuse center. Um, it's just an old ledger book. This one happens to be kind of like an off-white color with brown lines. Oftentimes you'll find them white with green lines, which I love those ones too. Sometimes you'll find them tinted in blue. It's amazing how differently you look at things when you start this. Okay, so these are the two pieces that I want to get stamping on so that I can set them aside to dry. And I will still probably use my heat tool on them as well, just before I start um, putting things together. So we're going to use a combination of those leaf stamps from the set that I shared. And we're going to start with Cajun Praise and this larger leaf. So if you love fall and you're loving the products that I'm using today, make sure that you check my events page. I do have an upcoming event. It's called the Fall Frenzy, where we're using this collection of products. We're doing a card class, which if I remember, I will share a peek at the 4 cards that we're making. It is available in person and to go here in Canada. Oh, I got a little bit of ghosting there, but that's okay. We'll cover that up with another stamp. And then the tutorial will be available as well. And then this we're going to stamp here. And then here. I love the variation in color. There are some dark spots on this stamp and then some light spots. It's one of our, what do you call them? What do you call these stamps? Do they have it on here? I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember what they're called, but they've got variation in the the coloring, and they're meant to be stamped that way. Okay, so now we're using the next size leaf and we're using some old olive. And maybe we'll add one more right here. Okay. And then we'll bring this one in and we're going to cover over that little bit of a mess that I made there. There's always some creative solutions. There we go. I'll do another one down here. Okay, and this guy's done for now. So we're going to set him aside, let it dry. We are going to come back and stamp some more images for the rest of our project, but these are the ones that I wanted to get done before we start assembling our album. Okay, then I'm going to bring in the next leaf and we're going to use some crushed curry. Okay, and one more stamp on this one. We're going to use the little acorn. We're going to do it in pecan pie. So, and of course, all of this can be done on just regular cardstock as well. You don't have to use like older stuff if you don't have it. All right. Now we're going to set that one aside as well. Okay, we can put this aside and we'll bring in our paper bag and we're going to start assembling. Okay, so I am going to start with this is the bottom flap, the bottom of the album. It is face up and I've got the opening on the right hand side. And I'm just going to fold this in on itself. And I'll use my bone folder, which I think is still downstairs. Let me grab another one. Okay. So I'm just going to line it up so that it's as straight as I can make it. Now these bags are not perfectly made. They're not made for crafting. So you will never be able to line up the edges. Like if you look here, you can see that it's not folded perfectly. It's uneven. Don't worry about that. This is meant to be like a little album, a little junk journal. It's not meant to be perfect. And then I'm going to fold it again. Okay, and then I've got a little bit of overhang, which I'm going to take over to my guillotine cutter. It's a big cutter, so I don't want to bring it on camera, but I'm going to cut it down here. And then I'm also going to cut just a sliver off the top. Okay, so I'm going to go do that and I'll bring back what I cut off so that I can show you guys. Okay, I'll be back in just a second. I'm just doing that second cut. Okay, so this is what I've cut off. So this was cut off the side. So I basically just cut this off so that this would be pretty even. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it pretty even here. So I cut that off and then I cut a sliver off the top. And the reason I did that was to create an opening so that I can create my pockets. Okay, so let me get rid of this. Now you'll see, because we trimmed off that gusseted bit, you have this bit in here. We can get rid of this. We don't need this. So I'm just going to take my snips and I'm going to cut up to where it's joined here. So see how it's joined right there? There's a fold. That's where I'm going to cut it. So, and it doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be hidden anyways. And I will keep this. Okay, so now we've got this and it's all open. So now we want what we want to do is we want to create our pockets. And I want this to be a top pocket, this to be a top pocket, and this to be a side pocket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my multi-purpose glue and I'm going to glue up here. So just to the left of where it's the fold line is, I'm adding some glue. So that's going to create our first pocket. I'm also going to glue this flap down. All right, so that's our first pocket. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this one. So I'm going to lift this up and I'm gluing just to the left of that fold line. And then I'm going to pop that down. And then on this one, I'm going to do along the top because for this one, I want a side pocket. So, and I don't need to worry about the bottom because I've glued here. Okay, so now I've got a pocket at the top here, pocket at the top here, and a pocket at the side. Now I do want to create a little notch here. It did have a notch, but remember we trimmed a little bit off. So, and I found that punches don't go through paper bags very well. It just kind of squishes them into it themselves. So what I did was I just punched a semicircle using, I don't, it's probably an inch and a half circle punch, just from some scrap cardstock. I'm just going to take a pencil and just use this as a, a template. And I will draw my semicircle and then trim around that semicircle. And that will create that little notch just to indicate that there is something in that pocket and you want to pull it out. You can also do that for the top pockets, but I'm not going to bother because both of those top pieces are going to have ribbons on them. So they'll see the ribbon sticking out the top. So I don't feel like it's necessary. Okay, so now at this point, it's important to figure out where your top is. So if I bring back the album again, you'll notice that my opening is on the left. So my buckle is on the left. And that is because I started decorating with my pockets at the bottom. I didn't realize I had it upside down. So we're going to do it so that the flap is on the right, which is the more natural way. But I didn't want to get rid of this. It's still perfectly fine. It just opens up backwards, that's all. But it still looks really good. So we're going to create the right way this time. Okay, so my opening is at the top, and this is going to be, okay, let me see here. Okay, so this and then this, but we want to do it. Okay, now I need to think about this. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit backwards. It's going to be different than my sample. I need to think about this a little bit differently. Okay, so this will have to fold in first and this will go in second. So I might actually need to trim just a sliver over here because or maybe I can just kind of refold it just a little bit. Let's see if we can do that. I'm just going to slide that over and refold that. I think that'll work actually. Now it's still just a little bit bulky. So I'm going to trim just another sliver off of this side. And then that's a little bit less bulk. Okay, there we go. All right, so now, again, my pocket, double check that, pocket's at the top. Now we're going to work on the back. So I'm gonna flip this over and I've got some pieces that are cut. So I'm gonna use some early espresso in the back and I'm gonna use this piece. So this is just a piece of not ribbon, DSP, 1.5 by, it's about 3 3/4. We'll probably end up trimming a little bit of it, but I'm gonna flag this. Actually, no, I'm not gonna flag it just yet. What we're gonna do is we're gonna attach this here. This is what's going to be our buckle. So I'm gonna use some multi-purpose glue and add some adhesive here. And because it's going to be handled quite a bit, I'm gonna like that's probably maybe an inch and a quarter that I've added glue to. And that will go kind of in the center, or I'm just eyeballing it. And then this piece is going to go over top. Now, if you're a junk journaler and you love all sorts of pockets, you could add a pocket to the back, but I'm going to leave it plain. You could even emboss this if you wanted to pretty it up a little bit. I figure it's the back of my book. I'm not too concerned. I am going to add a little bit more adhesive than this though. So this is going to go over top and that will just kind of give it a nice finished look. Just adhere that. Okay, let me check the comments here. Okay, so somebody's asking what I put over top of the book page. I used a piece of kind of craft colored tissue paper. So it's kind of craft and it just I like the finish of it when you add it over top of a book page, but I was mentioning that if you add it over top of a white book page, then it gives it a little bit more of an antique finish. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. Just making sure. Distinctive stamps. That's what the stamps are called. Thank you very much. That name left me there for a bit. All right. Okay. So now we've got our little flap, and this is going to go down. So we probably will need to trim this a little bit, but I cut it long because that way I will wait and trim it as needed once I've got my entire album decorated so that I can kind of figure out how thick it needs to be. All right. So we're going to leave that like that. And then we're going to come back, we're going to decorate the cover. So I've gone ahead and I've die cut um, these two dies from the DSP that I'm using. And I've used, I think it was this one. Nope. So it was the third largest branching out die, which if you missed it, these dies, as well as this DSP and the stamp set that I'm using, will all be available to customers beginning September 3rd. So I've used the third largest and the smallest to die cut these shapes. I've also gone around the edges with some pecan pie ink to give them a little bit of more distressed look. And actually, I'm going to do that with my paper bag as well. So I'm going to take this, my blending brush, and just kind of go around the edges. This is another thing that I just love the look of this now. I do this on almost all my projects. Funny how when you're reintroduced to something or introduced to something, how it can completely change the way you look at things. All right, so we're just going around all of the edges. Grab my pecan ink here. Go around this bit here and inside. So, and of course you can skip this step if this isn't the look that you want to achieve. All right, so we'll keep that like that for now. Okay, now make sure that I've got this going the right way. Okay, pockets are at the top. This goes in first, this goes in second. So this is going to be our cover. So this piece I'm going to put on flat. And I'm going to use way more adhesive than I normally would on a card because it's going to hold our entire front panel on and also stabilize this piece or keep this piece attached to our album because this is going to slide underneath that. Okay, so we've got that piece on. This piece is going to be put on using dimensionals. And what you want to do is you want to leave space. So I'm going to tuck this under. I'm going to center this where I want it. Grab my pencil, and I'm just going to put a pencil mark here and a pencil mark here because I don't want to add adhesive. Let's make those a little darker. I don't want to add adhesive in there because I want this to be able to slide in there, right? So I want to do adhesive around those bits. So we're going to use the edges for this. So I'm going to put some up here. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room. You can put adhesive down here. And I'll use another edge kind of right here. And I'll do one more. So again, generous with your dimensionals. And there are other ways that you can close this. So you could use twine or ribbon or some sort of fiber and just wrap it around multiple times and adhere it maybe before you put this on. So there's different ways that you can do it. You could use a magnet, enter that, and then I just want to make sure, yes, that will slide nicely in there. Okay, perfect. All right. So now also to decorate our cover, I've got a piece of white cardstock here and I am going to stamp on it. So we're going to bring back our stamps and I'm going to stamp a few things here. I might as well do all my stamping while I've got the stamps out. So I'm going to stamp two of these. This one this way. Make sure we have enough room on our cardstock. So those were stamped with Cajun Craze. And then I'll bring in some Old Olive. And I believe I need two of these as well. And then I'm going to bring in my crushed curry. And these ones, I think I need three of these. It's like I'm creating my own patterned paper here. And then I need the acorn and my pecan pie. I think I just need one of the, nope, two of these ones. And then I'm going to bring in some early espresso and I'm going to stamp the word gather. Okay, so I believe that's all of the stamping that I need to do. And then I've die cut all those. So let me pull out the pieces that I need here. I think it's these ones. Okay, so I've die cut all of those. And then the word gather, I fussy cut. So I'm just going to set that aside. And I want to go around the edges with my pecan. I'm not going to go around the edges on the gather. It's just too fine. I'm worried that I'm going to rip it if I do that. So now I've got this. Now I do want to be careful on how I position these. So I'm going to do this a little bit lower and I'm going to take this in my hand and kind of crinkle it, give it a bit of dimension. All right, there we go. And we're going to add some adhesive here. I'm going to use some multi-purpose glue. And we'll do our little cluster of leaves right about here. Do the same thing with this one. This is such a fun project. I can see myself using this idea kind of over and over again, using different collections. I'll do that one there. And then this, we're going to add some tiny little slivers. This is my least favorite part of the whole project. Tiny little slivers of dimensionals. So I'm just going to cut using the edges. And there, this one here. And I do want to make sure that I have a fair bit of adhesive on this. I want to make sure it doesn't fall apart or it doesn't fall off. This longer piece I'll cut in half just so I can make it kind of go around this. And we'll cut some more. Actually, this one might work as is. So let's see here. All right, so I want to make sure that my adhesive does not interfere with this. So I think I'm going to peel part of this back and trim it so it's a little shorter. And I'll use this over here. Okay, so let's peel off the backing on these. And we'll pop that on there like that. And there is our cover done. We'll still keep that, we'll adjust that a little bit in once we're ready for it. Okay, so now I need to think about this because this is a little bit different. So this was my cover. Okay, so I think we'll work on our insert pieces and then we'll decide how to go about doing it. Okay, so the other thing that I have here is I have um, a piece of early espresso cardstock that I added a 3 by 3 piece of white on there. I've ink blended around the white. So all of these white spaces are meant to be photo placeholders, but you could also use them for journaling if you wanted to journal on them instead of use them for photos. And I think I've got a scrap piece. Yes, I've got a scrap piece of DSP that I'm just going to go around the edges. This is just a 1/2 inch scrap piece. And I'm going to put this across the bottom of this piece. And it is a little long, so we'll have to trim it. So I'm just going to put some adhesive across the bottom like this. We'll add this on here. That brings in a little bit of that gold. And I think that's straight. I'll trim off the end. Okay, and then we're going to do a little cluster. So I've got a yellow leaf, a green leaf, and an acorn. We'll just go around the edges with our pecan pie ink. And I am going to distress them just a little bit. Add some adhesive just at the base because this will overlap your photo layer there a little bit. And if you're going to add a photo, you want to make sure that you can kind of tuck it underneath. So I'm doing probably adding adhesive to about 3/4 of it. Put that on there like that. And then this guy's going to get a dimensional on there like that. And then we're going to tie a tiny little bow from some of this early espresso twine or linen thread, sorry. This is another product that will be released in September. I just want a little one. Trim the ends, and we'll add a little dot of glue right here. And look how cute that little insert is. So cute. So that is going to go into one of our pockets. And then we are going to, oh, we are going to do some more stamping. Actually, let's do this one first. Okay, so this one here, I've got a little bit of music paper that I've attached to some grid paper. Again, this grid paper was just something that I picked up at the Hodgepodge Lodge. It was probably part of a smaller little notebook, and I just added it to the back because a lot of the papers that are in the books are a little thinner. So this adds a little bit more stability. It is still pretty thin, but it's okay. It's just going to be used as a tag. So we'll just cut this like that, flip it over, use this back edge piece to trim this side. I have gone around the edges already with my blending brush. I'll just do those corners that I trimmed. Remember this piece that we had left? So what I want to do is I want to create a little pocket on here. So I'm going to start in this upper left corner and I'm going to go down and I want it to go pretty much all the way across. So remember how I said you don't want to throw anything out? I'll just go around this one edge here. And then this piece is going to go down here. So we're going to add some adhesive down this left side and across the bottom to create our pocket. And we'll add this over top. Just make sure that it's straight here. We'll trim off the excess and then we'll do our ink blending around the edges. All right, we can get rid of these pieces. So now we've got this little pocket. That we can tuck a little photo insert inside. So then that's going to go in there. But first we need to add add the top bit. So this book paper that I covered with tissue paper, I'm going to bring that in and take my 1/2 inch circle punch and just punch. Actually, we're going to punch out this number. Add a little bit of glue to the back of this. And that's going to go on there like that. I'll just make a little X and oh, I just realized my hole punch is downstairs still. Okay, I'll grab my Crocodile and punch a hole. And we're going to use some more of that early espresso twine. So I'll just cut a little bit of that, fold it in half, and then feed it through. So how would you guys use this little mini album? Would you use it for photos? Would you use it for journaling, gratitude journal? How would you use it? Okay, and then this is going to go in here like that. Okay, there is our second insert. There is a little journaling spot on the back. So that is insert number 2. Okay, now we are going to bring in this piece here, which we're going to turn into a tag, but we're going to stamp on it first. So I'm going to bring back my scrap paper and I'm going to use a stamp set that I am so sad to see hit the last chance list. So it is on sale. It's called the Elements of Text. This is a must-have stamp set, I believe, in your collection. And this is one that I will not sell off. I will keep this one because I use it so much. I love it for adding layers and texture to my projects. So we're going to use, yeah, this stamp here. And we're going to use some crumb cake ink. I'm going to stamp the back of this tag. So I'm going to ink it up. I'm not even worried if it's fully inked. If I don't get a full on impression, that's completely fine. If I overlap, it's fine. If it's crooked, it's fine. It's really just about adding a little bit of detail to the back of my tag. And then I'm going to bring some of my leaf stamps back. So I'm going to use this big Cajun one. And then we'll bring in our crushed curry. And we're going to bring in our acorn. So we're basically just filling in some of these white areas. And if you're overlapping your images, that's completely fine. It's kind of a little bit of a collage kind of look that we're going for. We can move that out of the way. So see that? Now we're going to turn this into a tag. So again, I'm just going to freehand cut that. And I'll do a little bit of ink blending just on these corners because I had already ink blended it. We are going to ink blend the back of it just because the back could be used for some journaling or you could add a photo to the back. So we want that finished look on both sides. Okay, and then we'll punch a hole. And this time we are going to use some of this irregular weave trim. I'll cut, I don't know, maybe about 3 inches. I love this ribbon. Oh, it's so fabulous. I'll feed that through the hole. And we'll use a piece of this early espresso twine, wrap it around and tie a bow. And that is another one of our tags. That's one thing that I noticed that junk journalers don't use a whole lot of stamps. I noticed they use a lot of printables, a lot of stuff like that, but stamps are great, especially if you're already a stamper, you might as well incorporate them into what you're doing, right? They're such a great addition. They can dress things up so easily. All right, so we've got that. Now, the other thing that you can do with your scraps is I've gone ahead and I've die cut that smallest branching out die. We're going to bring this in and we're going to bring in some of our scraps. Actually, before we do this, I want to cut this up because I want to make sure that I have enough of this. I want to create a pocket out of this. So I am going to trim here and I'm not even going to measure. Trim here and we'll trim straight across here. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to use my guillotine cutter for this because it'll cut better. I'll be off camera for just a minute. Okay, and then instead of measuring, I'm just going to Okay, first of all, I want to determine which one I want my, okay, so this is going to go here, and I think I'm going to put my pocket here. So we want to do this, and we're going to cut it right about there. I'll go cut that. Okay, so this is going to be our pocket. All right, so now we've got some scraps. So we've got some scraps of this. So I'm going to keep this here. This is scraps of our paper bag that we cut off. We've got scraps of this that we've got. And actually, before we go on, let's do this one as well so that we have scraps of this. So this was a gift wrap. So at the beginning, I shared kind of some of the junk that I had pulled out to use. So this is a piece of gift wrap. So pretty. I loved the image on it. And because it's got kind of fall colors, so there's some leaves there, I thought it would be the perfect addition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of tear around the image. So just loosely go around the image. So I am right-handed. I'm tearing towards me with my right hand and holding like where I don't want it to tear with my left because I don't want to tear into the image. So it gives me a little bit more control. And again, you're going for that rough look, that distressed look, so it does not need to be perfect. And this might be too big. I might have to adjust a little bit when I go to add it to my project, but it'll give me a starting point. There we go. So we're going to use that as a focal point on our album. But now I've got this. I can use this side. It says especially for you, but I'm actually going to use the back side just because it's got that kind of off-white kind of look. So those are some of the scraps that I have. I think that's all that I used. All right, and we're just going to start adhering this. So one thing that I do like is I like the look of torn edges. So I kind of tear around all the sides and I'm going to use my glue stick and we'll just add some glue. I'm going to put this kind of in this bottom corner. Silicone mat is perfect for this. I do want my lines to be relatively straight. So we'll put that there. And then I'm going to take this piece, tear down the edges, and we'll put that up here. Like that. And then we've got some of this brown paper. And we can add that in this little area here. So this is kind of like collaging. Well, I guess it is kind of collaging. We're basically just using our scraps to kind of fill in the gaps. We need some music paper. We don't have any music. Did I not have a scrap of music paper? And all my scraps are downstairs. I guess I have that music book. I could tear a piece out of here. Let's see. Don't have anything that's kind of torn out. Look at sometimes you'll find these little notes, which are so fun because who knows how long that note has been in there. Okay, let's tear a little bit of this so that we can add a little bit of music paper in here. And we'll go around the edges so that we've got the music notes, and this will go along the top. Again, just trying to make sure that it's relatively straight. Okay, and maybe we'll add some more of this. So this is why you don't want to throw anything away because it is perfect for creating this. And what I normally do is when I'm working on a project, I will actually do a whole 8.5 by 11 with this, and then I can cut it up into tags, use it as pockets, and use it wherever feel like I need to use it. throughout the project. All right, there we go. So doesn't look like much right now, but now we're going to flip it over and we're going to get rid of some of these smaller pieces here. These pieces we don't need to keep. And we'll trim around this to give it our bring our shape back. Just trimming around this die shape. All right, set that aside. And now look, we've got this fabulous piece that we can use on our project. We'll just go around the edges. And you could definitely do this with some scraps of pattern paper as well. I could have incorporated some of that leaf pattern paper that I used on the cover on that piece. All right, what else do we need to do here? Okay, I think we've done that. We've done that. Okay, I think we're ready to start assembling. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, this is one of those ones that we stamped initially on that ledger paper. I am going to give this a quick zap with my heat tool just to make sure that it's dry. And while I've got my heat tool out, this is the one, because it's got the tissue paper over top. This is the one that really you have to be careful with, because that tissue paper, it's got, it's not quite as porous as cardstock. So it definitely takes a little longer. Okay, and then we're going to add glue, and this is going to go onto this piece. And I've already gone around the edges with um, my pecan pie. And I'm going to add a lot of glue on this, but not thick. So this fine tip glue, this just has our Stampin' Up's multi-purpose glue in there. And I love the fine tip. I feel like I have a little bit more control on how much glue is added to it, to my project. And again, you're not going to get perfectly even borders. It's not going to be perfectly straight because the paper bag is not straight. I got glue on my hands. Okay, so that's going to be that first one. This is going to be a pocket, and I'm actually going to trim this a little bit shorter. It's a little bit too tall. So I'll trim this down just a little bit. And then ink around the edges. All the way around. And we're going to create a pocket. So we're going to go down the two sides and across the bottom. In there like that. So I didn't go too close to the edge, so you can see that there's a little bit of a gap on both sides, and that just will help prevent anything from getting stuck when you go to fold it in. And I've got my leaves here, so I think this is the only one that needs to be sponged around the edges. So we're going to add that to this side, just because I have a feeling that it'll just keep getting caught on here if we do it on this side. So we're going to do it over here. I'm going to go on there like that. And then we'll do this guy. Again, just giving it a bit of dimension. That's another thing that I noticed. Junk journals, like they do everything flat, which is perfectly fine. Because I was a card maker before I became a junk journaler. I feel like I love the dimension. So I do add a little bit more dimension to my projects. All right, so there's our little embellishment cluster. And then we're going to take this tag. This is going to get popped into here. like that. And then I've got another bit here. So this is for, again, photo, or you can add some journaling to it. So that's going to go in there. This is meant for some journaling. And then on the inside, we're going to flip this open. This piece is going to go on here. Going to go on there like that. So it's relatively, I didn't think that through. Hey, that's a lot on the edges here of the craft paper, but that's okay. We're going to add something to it. All right. Now I've got this piece that I went ahead and I die cut using those new dies, those branching out dies. So I die cut that, and this is going to go on here. So that'll cover that up a little bit, add a little bit more interest. And this would have been really good if I had die cut this with adhesive sheets. But my adhesive sheets seem to have gone missing, so I have to order some more. All right. Oh, I'm gonna put that right up here, just like that. All right. Okay, and then this center panel, I have a strip of this DSP. I'm going to go around the edges with my pecan pie ink. And we're going to add some glue. We're going to create a little bit of a belly band. So I'm going to add glue to the bottom like that, and just put it up the center. And then I'm going to trim off the excess. So, and when I'm working with paper bags, I do find it easier to keep everything long and trim as you need, because like I said, the measurements are not always precise, and from each bag it will be different. I'll add a little bit of glue to the top, just add a little bit of ink to the top there. So now this has a little opening so that we can slide a little photo mat in there. And then this is where this is going to come into play. So I'm going to go around the edges with my pecan pie. All the way around the edges. And then this is going to go in here. Oh, it fits. Good. Okay. All right. So we want to make sure our little foxes are straight. So then I'll just flip this over. And you want to make sure that you're only adding adhesive where it's going to sit on top of the belly band. Because you don't want to stick it to your paper bag or to your photo mat. Let's just slide that out. All right. So we've got that on there. I think that, yeah, they're straight. I'll slide that back underneath. Isn't that cute? All right. And then this piece is going to go in here like this. And then this piece goes in here. Oh, my fingers are so sticky. That piece is going to go in there. And this, we've got to finish this tag off, and then we'll be finished. Okay. And I appear to be missing. So we're going to just ink around the edges. So I've got a piece of white that I can use as a photo mat. Welcome, everyone. All right. I'm glad you were able to join in live, Lynn. Thanks for joining me this morning. All right. That's going to go in the center here. And then we're going to punch a hole. Oh, let's get that stuck down there. Punch a hole in here and add our ribbon, and then we'll be done. Actually, yeah, let's use the bigger side. And we're going to bring in some of this gingham check ribbon. And this time we're going to use the um, old olive linen thread, which if you guys have been around, if you've been with Stampin' Up! For a long time, we did carry old olive linen thread years and years and years ago. I actually still have some. I kept it because I very rarely get rid of my twine. So I was excited to see it come back again. All right, we're going to wrap that around and tie a bow. And then our project will be done. And I'll do a flip through of both of them so that you can see kind of my backwards first try and then the right way around. All right, got that. Let's just tweak this a little bit. And then this is going to go into this pocket here. And let's really just hope that it fits. We didn't put the glue so that it was too small. Oh no, let's see. We might have to trim it down just a little bit. Oh, no, we can get it to go. There is something that it's getting stuck on in the bottom here. Ah, there's a little flap at the bottom, that's why. There we go. Okay. All right. And there, oh, we have to adjust our flap. Okay, so this is going to go under here. So now we can see how thick it is. So what I did was I kind of folded this in on itself so that it would be a little bit of a sharper fold, and then close this up. And then I kind of pinched this. Also being mindful that you still need to add your photos, or well, if you're using it for photos, you'll still need to add your photos. So you do want to give yourself a little bit of room. I also angle cut this just to finish it off nicely. So now it's got that squared off edge, and there we go. So there is our finished project. So let me bring back this one. Let me tuck all the inserts in here. And this guy. And this guy. All right, so all of our inserts are the same. It's just, and the actual project is the same. The only difference is just how it closes or on the side that it closes on. So there we go. I think it works both ways. What do you think? So whether you have it opening from the left or opening from the right, I think it works. And there we go. So wouldn't that be fun to, like, as a gratitude journal, you could add some photos, some of the things that you're thankful for. It would also be a cute little insert into a junk journal. It does have some thickness to it, so you would need like a little bit of a larger pocket to have it included into a junk journal, but it's so fun and just made out of a paper bag, some patterned paper, some scraps of ribbon, and some book paper, music paper, whatever you can find kind of lying around. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh, before I go, I was going to share the projects for my upcoming Fall Frenzy card class. So let me share. Let me grab them here. All right. And this class is available to go anywhere in Canada and in person. And then the tutorial option will be available as well. So there is card number one. Card number two, this is a little bit of a fun fold. card number 3, and card number 4, a nice big one where we're going to try the stitching. So those are the projects that we'll be making. I will post a link to where you can find more information on that event in the description below. I will also put the supplies that I used in the description below and a link to the blog post with photos of this project. All right. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. Take care.